pussies we are these days, how feminine we are these days, right? So our judgment of what is masculine and what is a strong man do is completely out of whack. But you can just kind of imagine that's how men used to be. They'd spot the woman that they wanted, and they'd basically go on some kind of quest to prove that they were.
Oh, there we go. Jesus. Ugh, what a headache. ARJ, what's up? Congratulations, sir. You are first.
Hold, so you're gonna have to deal with it. But the show.
We're gonna keep watching some of the Destiny debate.
I just want to respond to a point you made earlier, which was that people expressed their rejection of the partition resolution on the grounds that it gave the majority of Palestine to the Jews.
Why do you dislike the other guy so much? You'll see. I don't dislike him as a person, but his yeah, you'll see.
Community, which formed only a third. Whereas in fact, if I understood you correctly, you're saying the Palestinians and the Arabs would have rejected any partition resolution.
Yeah,
I think
a couple things. That one, they would have rejected any. Two, a lot of that land given was in the Negev. It was pretty terrible land at the time. And then three, the land that would have been partitioned to Jews, I think would have been, I think I saw it was like 500,000 Arab. It would have been 500,000 Jews, 400,000 Arabs, and I think like 80,000 Bedouin would have been there. So the state would have been.
I think you raise a valid point, because I think the Palestinians did reject the partition of their homeland in principle. And I think the fact that the United Nations General Assembly then awarded the majority of their homeland to the Zionist movement only added insult to injury. Yeah. I mean, one doesn't have to sympathize with the Palestinians to recognize that they have now been a stateless people for 75 years. Can you name any country, yours, for example, or yours, that would be prepared to give 55%, 25%, 10% of your country to the Palestinians? Of course not. And so the issue was not the existence of Jews in Palestine. They had been there for centuries. And of course they had ties to Palestine and particularly to Jerusalem.
That is a bullshit argument, because so much of the Palestinian land that the Jews were supposed to be partitioned wasn't developed. Like, nobody was living there. It was all swamp. Nobody cared. So that's a bullshit argument.
And other places, going back centuries, if not millennia.
Can you elaborate on why you don't like the Free Palestine movement? Because they're all terrorist sympathizers, and they don't even know what they're fucking arguing for. A lot of them are just virtue signaling fucking morons. Whenever you ask them any fucking questions about whether they want like a two-state solution or whatever, they'll give stupid fucking answers that completely contradict the bullshit they'll spout during their protests, like from the river to the sea. Again, they're terrorist sympathizers. They'll support rape, they'll support murder, they'll support killing innocent people. They get historical facts all wrong. They're just all fucking retarded pieces of shit.
But the idea of establishing an exclusively Jewish state at the expense of those who are already living there, I think it was right to reject that. And I don't think we can look back now, 75 years later, and say, well...
I wrote down so much in my paper that I want to respond to, but because there's four of us, because it's 2 debate, I can't. But like, if you're going to say that it was right for them to reject it, that they should have rejected it, that's fine. But then how can you say in your intro that Zionism was built on exclusion and superiority? Like, because you're saying that the Arabs would have excluded the Jews no matter what. So why would we say that of Zionism?
You should have accepted losing 55% of your homeland, because you ended up losing 78% of it, and the remaining 22% was occupied in 1967. That's not how things work.
Yeah.
And I can imagine an American rejecting giving 10% of the United States to the Palestinians, and if that rejection leads to war and you lose half your country, I doubt that 50 years from now you're going to say, well, maybe I should have accepted that.
Sure. So I like this answer more than what I usually feel like I'm hearing when it comes to the Palestinian rejection of the 47 partition plan. Because sometimes...
Do you think that there is issues with the operations that Israel's performing in Gaza? Fundamentally, no.
I feel like a weird switch happens to where the Arabs in the area are actually presented as entirely pragmatic people who are simply doing a calculation and saying like, well, we're losing 55% of our land. Jews are only maybe 1/3 of the people here, and we've got 45, and the math doesn't work, basically. But it wasn't a math problem. I think, like you said,
it was a matter of principle.
Hello vegan games, looking good. Is this Hemingway? Is it Jason Blaha? Anyway, thoughts on Mao Zedong?
I'm not sure who that's supposed to be. It could be Blaha. Mao Zedong was a bad person. Thanks for the donation, nipple clamps.
It was an ideology problem.
No, it was a matter of principle.
Yeah, ideologically driven. That they, as a people, have a right to or are entitled to this land that they've never actually had an independent state on, that they've never had even a guarantee of an independent state on, that they've never actually ruled a government.
That last point is actually not correct, because for all its injustice, the mandate system recognized Palestine as a Class A mandate, which provisionally recognized the independence of that territory.
Of what would emerge from that territory, but not of the Palestinian.
It was provisionally recognized.
But the territory itself was, but not of the Palestinian people to have a right or a guarantee to a government that would emerge.
It was a British mandate of Palestine, not the...
I like when they're wrong on a point. I don't know how... I need to figure out a way to, like... when I'm in a debate and I realize that I'm incorrect about something or I'm wrong on something, it's pretty embarrassing. I'm like, okay, sure. And then I concede. Other people don't have this inbuilt, like, embarrassment mechanism. They just roll right on through. So he made a patently false claim that there was a guarantee to the Palestinian people for a state after the mandate expired. That is not true. The only guarantee there was that to whatever state emerged, or whatever, like, whatever government, whatever governing body, whatever administration emerged as a stable thing from that territory, that's what would inherit the state, not to the Palestinian people. He was completely wrong there. And then I kind of say, like, well, no, that's not true. But then he just, like, steamrolls on through. He, like, doesn't care. He has no care in the world that what he just said was completely not true.
But not of the Palestinian people to have a right or a guarantee to a government that would emerge.
It was a British mandate of Palestine, not the British mandate of Israel.
The word
but British mandate of Palestine, what doesn't mean a state for the Arabs living there? What are you talking about? Like,
exclusive, which you keep using, is nonsense. The state which Ben Gurion envisioned would be a Jewish majority state, as they accepted the 1947 partition resolution, as Stephen said. That included 400,000 plus Arabs in a state which would have 500,000 Jews. So the idea of exclusivity wasn't anywhere in the air at all among the Zionist leaders in 47, 48. They wanted a Jewish majority state, but were willing to accept a state which had 40% Arabs. That's one point. The second thing is the Palestinians may have regarded the land of Palestine as their homeland, but so did the Jews. It was the homeland of the Jews as well. The problem was the Arabs were unable and remain to this day unable to recognize that for the Jews, that is their homeland as well. And the problem then is, how do you share this homeland? Either with one binational state or separate this partition into two states. The problem is that the Arabs have always rejected both of these ideas. The homeland belongs to the Jews, as Jews feel, as much as it does, if not more, than for the Arabs.
Jews.
I would say for the Jews. It's the Jewish people's
I would also,
homeland.
real quick, I just want for both of you guys, because I haven't heard these questions answered. I really want these questions to be, I'm just so curious how to make sense of them. It was correctly brought up that I believe that Ben Gurion had, I think Shlomo Ben-Ami describes it as an obsession with getting validation or support from Western states. Great Britain, and then a couple decades later,
That explains the Suez War, the Suez crisis.
Exactly, correct. That was one of the major motivators, the idea to work with Britain and France on a military operation.
Imperial
against Arabs.
stooge.
But then the question again I go back to, if that is true, if Ben Gurion, if the early Israel saw themselves as a Western fashion nation, how could we possibly imagine that they would have engaged in the transfer of some 400,000 Arabs after accepting the partition plan? Would that not have completely and totally destroyed their legitimacy in the eyes of the entire Western world? Would there not have been? How not?
Well, first of all, I think that the Zionist leadership's acceptance of the partition resolution, and I think you may have written about this, that they accepted it because it provided international endorsement of the legitimacy of the principle of Jewish statehood. And they didn't accept the borders. And in fact, later expanded the borders. Second of all,
the borders were expanded in war.
They accepted the UN partition resolution, borders and all. They accepted. You can say that some of the Zionists, deep in their hearts, had the idea that maybe at some point they would be able to get more.
Including their most senior leaders who said so, and I think you've quoted them.
Yes, but they have the quotes. But it has to do with what.
Like, all these fucking pro-Palestinian idiots, they always accuse, like, Jews of thought crimes. Oh, well, you wanted that. Oh, you thought of it. Like, okay, but that's not what they did.
The reality on the ground is.
They grudgingly accepted what the United Nations, the world community, had said, this is what you're going to get.
And second of all, I mean, removing darker people, it's dark.
This is such an unbelievably brain-dead point. If this would have happened later in the debate, I would have been way more unhinged in response to this. So he's described over and over again, rightfully so, he's described that Israel is obsessed with having a strong Western ally, which is true. It was a very important part politically for Israel's mission early on, is to have a strong Western ally, because they didn't want to stand alone against a sea of Arab enemies, right? But if that's true, how would they have accepted 400,000 Arabs living in their territory and then expelled them all? They would have been completely and totally excoriated by the West if they would have accepted a partition plan and then expelled all those people. And what is Muin's ingenious response? Oh, well, they're brown people. They're brown people.
Yes, and second of all, I mean, removing darker people, it's intrinsic. It's intrinsic. It's intrinsic to Western history. So the idea that Americans or Brits or the French would have an issue with, I mean, the French had been doing it in Algeria for decades. The Americans have been doing it in North America for centuries. So how would Israel forcibly displacing Palestinians somehow besmirch Israel in the eyes of...
It's such an unbelievably stupid point. Oh my God.
Even in the 1944 resolution of the Labour Party, and at the time even Bertrand Russell was a member of the Labour Party, it endorsed transfer of Arabs out of Palestine. As Muin's pointed out, that was a deeply entrenched idea in Western thinking, that there was nothing, it doesn't in any way contradict or violate or breach any moral values to displace the Palestinian population. Now, I do believe there's a legitimate question. Had it been the case, as you said, Professor Morris, that the Zionists wanted to create a happy state with a Jewish majority, but a large Jewish minority, and if by virtue of immigration, like in our own country, given the current trajectories, non-whites will become the majority population in the United States quite soon. And according to democratic principles, we have to accept that. So if that were the case, I would say maybe there's an argument that had there been mass Jewish immigration, changed the demographic balance in Palestine, and therefore Jews became the majority.
I don't even know what the f***
Make an argument in the abstract that the indigenous Arab population should have been accepting of that, just as whites in the United States, quote unquote whites, have to be accepting of the fact that the demographic majority.
This is a very, very, very Western-brained view of ethnicity or geography, or not geography, I'm sorry, of ethnicity or immigration in a country. That in the West, we inherently accept that demographics will change over time as immigrants come in because we're countries of immigrants. Like, what is the American...
Hey brother, can you take a look at this guy and tell if he is natural or not in your opinion? Also, can you unban me from your chat please? Didn't do anything wrong, I'm a huge fan. Love you bro.
I don't know why you got banned, but if you give me a link to your channel, I can unban you. Let me take a look.
Talk like you're the best.
730-pound squats.
Yes, Naruto, but you're still the worst student. You can't beat me.
Such confidence.
Jeez, that was quick.
And the wit to turn failure on its head and quickly plan his next move. Naruto...
Or sorry, 655.
...has become strong. Truly
Guess he's
strong.
working up to 730.
Jutsu that were beyond the fourth Hokage are well within his command.
Jesus, what the fuck is with the audio? 730. Say that's a little high, but, you know, whatever. Well, I don't know who this guy is. Is this all the same dude? 225 for 30. I don't know what his actual bench is. 505. Jesus. Yeah, this guy's pretty stupid strong. Trying to find like other lifts he's done. He might be on gear. Like, his strength is pretty insane. 505 on bench is extremely, extremely difficult. He could be natty, though. I don't know. Like, he's not... His physique doesn't look like he would have to take steroids to get that kind of physique. But he is ridiculously strong. I don't know. I wouldn't be able to tell you. Oh, here we go. Incline press 405. He might be natty. So... Yeah, incline pressing 405 for reps, I'd, like, pretty much say, okay, you're on steroids for sure, bro. Because that's, like, Mike O'Hearn shit. 405 for single, like, that's extremely strong, but he's... It's possible to, you know, be that strong natty. If he was incline pressing 405 for reps, I'd be like, yeah, pretty much no way. 455. Okay, you know what? He probably could get 405 for reps on the incline. Well, his butt's coming off the bench. I guess not. He could be natty. I wouldn't say it's a guarantee that he's on gear. I don't know, does he claim he's natty? I don't know if he claims he's natty. May or may not be on gear. Wouldn't be able to tell you. Thanks for the donation, though, Captain Black.
Ethnicity. What is the Canadian ethnicity? Of course, demographics going to change over time. We don't have a strong racial demographic that we can point to. But to pretend that that's the same case in like every Middle Eastern nation that are all essentially ethno-states, basically, that's an unbelievably weird comparison here. That any Arab state would have just accepted millions and millions of Jewish people immigrating to that state absolutely would have never happened.
Is shifting to non-whites in our own country.
Yeah, dude. Palestinians were also, at least the leadership, they were very much friends with Hitler. They're actually trying to help Hitler exterminate the Jews, and there's a long, long history of anti-Semitism in the Arab world. So the idea that they'd be okay with just Jews coming over, yeah.
But that's not what Zionism was about. I did write my doctoral dissertation on Zionism, and I don't want to get now bogged down in abstract ideas. But as I suspect you know, most theorists of nationalism say there are two kinds of nationalism. One is a nationalism based on citizenship. You become a citizen, you're integral to the country. That's sometimes called political nationalism. And then there's another kind of nationalism, and that says the state should not belong to its citizens, it should belong to an ethnic group. Each ethnic group should have its own state. It's usually called the German Romantic idea of nationalism. Zionism is squarely in the German Romantic idea. That was the whole point of Zionism. We don't want to be Bundists and be one more ethnic minority in Russia. We don't want to become citizens and just become a Jewish people in England or France. We want our own state.
Like the Arab 21st state.
No, wait, before we get to the Arabs, let's stick to the Jews for a moment, or the Zionists. We want our own state. And in that concept of wanting your own state, the minority at best lives on sufferance, and at worst,
bullshit,
gets expelled.
What?
That's the logic of the German Romantic Zionist idea of a state. That's why they're Zionists. Now, I personally have shied away from using the word Zionism ever since I finished.
Yeah, I would totally reject those premises.
My doctoral dissertation, because
that's painful.
Because as I said, I don't believe it's the operative ideology today. It's like talking about Bolshevism and referring to
What does Polychrome do?
Yeah, I moved.
I doubt Khrushchev could have spelled Bolshevik. But for the period we're talking about, they were Zionists. They were committed to their exclusive state with a minority living on sufferance or, at worst, expelled. That was their ideology. And I really feel there's a problem with your happy vision of these Western Democrats like Weizmann, and they wanted to live peacefully with the Arabs. Weizmann described the expulsion in 1948 as, quote, the miraculous clearing of the land. That doesn't sound like somebody shedding too many tears.
When he says miraculous clearing of the land, like they were so happy to kill all of the Arabs or kick them out, and couldn't possibly be referring to anything else there. Like
at the loss of the indigenous population.
Let me respond to the word unsufferance. The unsufferance I don't agree with. I think that's wrong. The Jewish state came into being in 1948. It had a population which was 20% Arab when it came into being. After Arab refugees, many of them had become refugees, but 20% remained in the country. 20% of Israel's population at inception in 1949 was Arab.
80% went missing.
No. We're talking about what remained in Palestine, Israel, after it was created. The 20% who lived in Israel received citizenship and all the rights of Israelis, except, of course, the right to serve in the army, which they didn't want to. And they have Supreme Court justices, they have Knesset members. They enjoy basically
under emergency laws until 1966.
For a period, sure. They lived under
so they didn't
no, wait a second.
At
the beginning, it's not fantasy. At the beginning, they received citizenship, could vote in elections for their own people, and they were put into parliament. But in the first years, the Jewish majority suspected that maybe the Arabs would be disloyal because they had just tried to destroy the Jewish state. Then they dropped the military government and they became fully equal citizens. So if the whole idea was they must have a state without Arabs, this didn't happen in 49, and it didn't happen in the
then why did you say, Professor Morris,
yes.
Then why did you say without a population expulsion, a Jewish state would not have been established?
Because
oh my God, and he goes back to the one quote that he still doesn't understand. He goes back to the one quote again. The one quote.
Population expulsion, a Jewish state would not have been established.
Because you're missing the first section of that paragraph, which was they were being assaulted by the Arabs. And as a result, a Jewish state could not have come into being unless there had also been an expulsion of the population which was trying to kill them.
Norm, I'm officially forbidding you referencing that again.
I think...
Yeah, Jesus. Holy shit. I love how this fucking jackass, who's a complete idiot, never gives any pushback to stupid shit said on his podcast, actually fucking violates his own rule. And he's like, yeah, Finkelstein, stop fucking misquoting him.
Hold on a second, wait. We responded to it. So the main point you're making, we have to take Benny at his word, is like, there was a war, and that's the reason why he made that statement.
I think that just one last point on this. I remember reading your book when it first came out. And
dude, Finkelstein is such a disingenuous fucking prick. Holy shit.
And reading, one incident after the other and one example after the other, and then getting to the conclusion where you said
passive-aggressive much. I don't know what was passive-aggressive about that. I'm not going to tell you where I moved to exactly, but I'm living near Ottawa. I'm pretty close to Ottawa. We moved just because Jasmine has a friend who has a farm property, and then moved here so that the horse is close by and everything.
Nakba was a product of war, not design, I think we were and I remember reacting almost in shock to that I felt you had mobilized overwhelming evidence that it was a product of design, not war. And I think our discussion today very much reflects, let's say, the dissonance between the evidence and the conclusion. You don't feel that the research that you have conducted and published demonstrates that it was in fact inherent and inbuilt and inevitable. And I think the point that Norm and I are making is that your own historical research, together with that of others, indisputably demonstrates that it does. I think that's.
But you haven't demonstrated anybody else's research or any other point whatsoever, ever. You haven't made a single. We're an hour and 19 minutes in, and not a single new fact or contextualized piece of information has been brought up to illustrate that. Not one thing.
Fundamental disagreement we're having here.
Does he think having the stack of books in front of him makes him look like he's actually read through anything? No. Norm has definitely gone through all of these books because all three of these books are his own books. These are just his books that he brought to quote from.
Can I actually respond to that? Because this is actually, I think this is emblematic of the entire conversation. I watched a lot of Norm's interviews and conversations in preparation for this, and I hear Norm will say this all over and over and over again. I only deal in facts. I don't deal in hypotheticals. I only deal in facts. I only deal in facts. And that seems to be the case, except for when the facts are completely and totally contrary to the particular point you're trying to push. The idea that Jews would have out of hand rejected any state that had Arabs on it or always had a plan of expulsion is just betrayed by the acceptance of the 47 partition.
I don't think you understand politics.
There's no response to that. The Jews accepted 47. How can you say they would have always rejected everything when they accepted 47? And Arabs rejected everything. It's like the exact opposite. It's the exact opposite fact pattern of what he's trying to conclude from.
Arabs on it or always had a plan of expulsion is just betrayed by the acceptance of the 47 partition.
I don't think you understand politics. Did I just say that there is a chasm that separates your ideology from the limits and constraints imposed by politics and reality? Now, Professor Morris, I suspect, would agree that the Zionist movement from fairly early on was committed to the idea of a Jewish state. I am aware of only one major study, probably written 40 years ago, the binational idea in mandatory Palestine by a woman, I forgot her name now, you remember her.
I'm trying.
Yeah, okay, but you know the book. Yeah, she is the only one who tried to persuasively argue that the Zionist movement was actually, not formally, actually committed to the binational idea. But most historians...
Richard the Gay Black donated $2. Let me see.
During the recent ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, Israel released 240 Palestinians from prison. But this is what's crazy. That same week, they also arrested 133 Palestinians. This is what a lot of people don't really understand about the Israeli occupation, is that one of the most egregious things...
What? Yeah, so they're probably arrested because they committed a crime or are suspected of committing a crime.
Things that Israel does is that they just arrest Palestinians without charging them with a crime. A lot of these Palestinians...
That is not true.
...are like teenage boys.
Guess what? Those teenage boys are fucking, terrorists. One major terror attack that happened, and I think it was fairly recently, was committed by fucking teenage Palestinian children who were going around knifing and fucking murdering people.
Who are arrested for, like, effectively throwing stones.
Yes, that's something that would get you arrested, dipshit. If you throw rocks at people's heads, you're gonna get arrested.
The terrorist attack of October 7th, Israel has been going nuts on arresting people in the West Bank, which is different than...
Oh my god. Okay, the reason why they fucking arrest these people is because they probably have ties to Hamas. Hamas is in the West Bank, and most of the terror attacks that are committed from the West Bank, Hamas takes credit for.
In Gaza, where Hamas is. They've detained over 3,000 Palestinians.
Yeah, so this guy's promoting this misinformation that Hamas is only in Gaza. Hamas is in the West Bank too, you fucking idiot.
Palestinians in the West Bank, which is 10 times the number of people that they've released. These people don't know why they're arrested. They will never have a trial. Like, this is not...
That is bullshit. Show us the evidence.
Due process.
Show us the evidence that these people are getting arrested without any suspicion of a crime and will never receive trial. You're a fucking liar.
This is not the rule of law. This is occupation. It's wrong. Many of these kids are going to be in prison for months or years.
Yeah, it's because they've committed fucking terror attacks, you fucking moron.
If you want to better understand global politics.
Dude, this guy is a fucking piece of shit. Who the fuck is this asshole? Oh my god, what a lying fuckwit. Holy shit. Have I watched his videos before? Yeah, I have. This guy's a lying fuckwit. Oh my god, I'm never gonna watch this guy's content again. What a dipshit. Thanks for the donation, Richard the Gay Black. W donated $2. I'm not a fan of Sunday, but this is so good.
There's a perfectly understandable reason why Palestinian Arabs wouldn't want Jews.
Richard the Gay Black donated $2. Also read the comment section.
You need to see this really quick.
It's called kidnapping. For those of you who don't know, 11 young, healthy Palestinian prisoners from the West Bank have been killed inside Israeli prisons due to torture since October 7th, and many have been killed before that day. Yeah, not a single port in the Western... Yeah, cool story. I have no respect for Israel. The entire world sees what's happening. The Palestinians have the right to hate the ones that destroyed their lives. Professor Norm Finkelstein. Oh my god. Dude, holy shit. Oh, that is cancer. Oh my god. I can't believe people just eat this shit up. It's so fucked-hearted. Like, why would you believe this? It's so nonsensical. Thanks for the donation, Richard the Gay Black.
Jews, because in their minds, and not irrationally, these Jews intended to create a Jewish state which would quite likely have resulted in their expulsion. I'm a very generous person. I've actually taken in a homeless person for 2.5 years. But
wait. Hang on. Slow down. This is good. Did I mishear? I need to make sure I heard this correctly. This is amazing in light of what came out today. Hang on.
Palestinian strikes me as completely ridiculous.
Aww.
Number two.
Stop interrupting.
As Moeen said, there's a perfectly understandable reason why Palestinian Arabs wouldn't want Jews, because in their minds, and not irrationally, these Jews intended to create a Jewish state which would quite likely have resulted in their expulsion. I'm a very generous person. I've actually taken in a homeless person for
Okay. Bear with me 1 second, guys. I'm gonna show you something, okay? For people who haven't seen it. Sure, a lot of you have.
Where is this coming from, also?
Daedalus, please, for the love of God, just hang on 1 sec. Okay. Oh. Speak of the devil. Okay. So.
Why do you think there's so much pro-Palestinian Hamas propaganda? One is because of rampant anti-Semitism. I think the reason why so many people are willing to believe Hamas propaganda is because they hate Jews. Secondly, Hamas is very good with propaganda and PR, and you can actually see this sort of thing play out in like murder trials or just, you know, court trials in general. If there's video footage showing violence, you're automatically going to be more sympathetic to the person who is the victim of violence. So there was like this really high profile court case where a guy murdered his ex-girlfriend and her baby. But there was video footage of the police viciously beating this guy after he had gotten arrested. And I think he also killed a cop. He actually avoided the death penalty because the jury became sympathetic to him because they saw him getting beaten by the police. So whenever there's like video footage of Palestinians getting, you know, blown up and shit, like fucking retard, you know, monkey brains, you know, see the shit and then they automatically just give sympathy to the Palestinians. And they're not able to contextualize anything and see, oh, well, that's because of Hamas's attack, and Hamas also uses human shields, so I'm still going to side with Israel. And they're stupid, primitive, like, dumb monkey brains. They're like, oh my god, innocent people, oh, Israel bad! And then, like, combine that with all the anti-Semitism and shit, like, yeah, you get what you get.
This is Norman Finkelstein. Thank you, Lonerbox. I'll read it for you, though. Okay?
It's really weird that he mentions this. Like, genuinely, yes. It's fucking weird. Like, it's almost like he's
perplexed.
Like, I'm not one to psychoanalyze, but it's almost like he wants someone to go find out what he's talking about and make him look like a shithead. It's very strange to bring it up.
This is Norman Finkelstein to his neighbors in his apartment suite. To Carol and Roberto Havelanos, I'm assuming. You've got 2 days to move or the trouble... I'm going to say it in his voice. You've got 2 days to move or the troubles begin. You committed the biggest mistake of your life yesterday. I had 2 guests in my apartment. I'm not going to do that. One of them a professor of criminology. They listened to the noise for 4 hours. At midnight, we all went together to the police precinct where we all spoke to several police officers. The police are now fully informed about the situation. They urged me to call 311 the moment the noise starts again. I also contacted Child Protection Services again. I already spoke to several of your friends in the elevator on the way to your party about you. I know your places of employment, which I will contact this week, but here's your big problem. On Tuesday, August 18th, I will contact Immigration and Naturalization Services, INS. I will inform them of quote-unquote young doctor, not so Eric Carol, sorry, that was a joke, Carol Havelanos' former quote-unquote job at the fake quote-unquote medical office next door run by the Russian mafioso fake quote-unquote doctor. I know exactly what was really going on there. Faking a medical establishment in New York is a criminal offense and grounds for immediate deportation. Carol and Roberto Havelanos' papers and your babysitter's papers better be in order when the INS pays a visit. You now have 2 days to quickly and quietly vacate the apartment. If you make any noise while moving, I will immediately contact the police again and tell them about Carol Havelanos' past. I warned you in the last letter. I knew about the illicit activity, quote-unquote. I don't know why he's doing that in quotes. You chose to carry on like animals. You will now pay the price. This is interesting language given what we've heard in this debate. I warned you that you will never win against me. You should have Googled my name, Norman Finkelstein. And gone to YouTube and entered my name. Now,
I think telling
this guy is a fucking narcissist. Holy shit!
Anyone
do you know who I am? Like, wow.
Google you is the beginning of like just no.
Do you know who the fuck I am?
Do you know who I am? I'm the man who's gonna burn your house down!
Oh my god. Oh, I need to do a dramatic reading of this on stream or on a video later.
We need an appropriate Muppet for this, not Kermit. Gonzo? No.
Finkelstein. Wait. Finkelstein actually hired that homeless person to harass his Hispanic neighbors. That's a joke, right? That's got to be a joke. That's a joke. That's 100% a joke. Okay. The noise stopped for 3 days, so I didn't call immigration and naturalization services. But now it is starting again. If you don't stop the noise, I am calling the police. But this will be the last call to the police. You will end up either deported, arrested, or without your child. You decide. Oh my god.
Too bad, apes, you're not sleeping tonight? Whoa.
Too bad, apes.
I'm detecting racist undertones. Dude, this is insane.
You are not sleeping tonight. This guy's a fucking nutball.
I can just see Norman Finkelstein being the guy in the apartment who bangs his broom on the ceiling.
I'm glad that sentence ended the way it did. Yeah, this is good guy Norman Finkelstein housing the homeless.
I hate Sunday, but that was pretty hilarious. I'm glad he called him out on that. Holy fuck, dude. What a whack job.
Of the subject agree, the Zionist movement was committed to the idea of a Jewish state. Having written my doctoral dissertation on the topic, I was confirmed in that idea because Professor Chomsky, who was my closest friend for about 40 years, was very committed to the idea that binationalism was the dominant trend in Zionism. I couldn't go with him there. But Professor Morris, you are aware that until the Biltmore Resolution in 1942, the Zionist movement never declared it was for a Jewish state. Why? Because it was politically impossible at the moment until 1942. There is your ideology, there are your convictions, there are your operative plans, and there's also separately what you say in public. The Zionist movement couldn't say in public, we're expelling all the Arabs. They can't say that. And they couldn't even say we support a Jewish state until 1940.
So again, he's claiming he can read all of their minds and know about their devious, Jew plans, even though he has no evidence for fucking any of this.
So you're conflating two things. The Zionists wanted a Jewish state, correct? That didn't mean expulsion of the Arabs. It's not the same thing. They wanted a Jewish state with a Jewish majority, but they were willing, as it turned out, both in 37 and in 47, and subsequently, to have an Arab minority, a large Arab minority. They were willing to have a large Arab minority in the country, and they ended up with a large Arab minority in the country. 20% of the population in 49 was Arab, and it's still.
They ended up for about 5 minutes before they were expelled. They agreed to it until 47, and then they were gone by March 1949.
What happened?
They agreed to it until 47, and then they were gone by March 1949.
What happened between 47? Wait, am I about to say that? Please say what happened.
What happened in between the rejection?
Thank you. Yes, Jesus.
And the partition plan and the expulsion of the Arabs.
The Arabs launched a war.
Yes.
Well, I mean, it wasn't random. There's a potential
I agree, it wasn't random.
There was.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah,
wait,
why don't you respond to that? There was
a. I'm sorry. He's acting as if they're just expelled for no reason. There was a fucking war.
Fucking war! What are you talking about? There was a whole ass civil war and then a whole ass invasion.
Design.
You can say that. You can say that, but in this case, the facts betray you. There was no Arab acceptance of anything that would have allowed for a Jewish state to exist. Number one, and number two, I think that.
Okay, and at least Moyne says that. Of course not. No, there was no acceptable Jewish state. Moyne accepts that. Norm, I think, is a bit more sophisticated and realizes that he can't accept that. I think Moyne is a bit more honest and Norm is a bit more retarded. But Moyne at least says, yeah, of course, there was no acceptable Jewish state.
Highly possible, given how things happen after war, that this exact same conflict could have played out and an expulsion would have happened without any ideology at play. That there was a people that disagreed on who had territorial rights to a land. There was a massive war afterwards, and then a bunch of their friends invaded after to reinforce the idea that the Jewish people in this case couldn't have a state. There could have been a transfer regardless.
Anything could have been.
Oh, you wasn't even.
What is your thoughts on the failed, according to Western media, counteroffensive that Ukraine did against Russia? I don't know if I'd call it failed. The issue is Russia has had, a year or over a year to fortify their positions, and they've laid down, I think hundreds of thousands of landmines. So, the counteroffensive just went very, very slowly. Russia still also has air superiority. And it also has taken Ukraine a while to get some of the longer range missile systems like ATACMS. Or GLSDB, whatever it fucking was. So it just went slower than they would have liked. But, you know, it's kind of to be expected under the circumstances. So yeah, just the amount of landmines, the fortifications, and the lack of air superiority, it just contributed to a much slower advance. What do you think about the progress of the Ukraine-Russia war? Well, Russia's losing, and they're getting extraordinarily pissed off and paranoid. You can see just how desperate they are. Putin's talking about, like, you know, using nuclear arms again. It just shows you how fucking desperate they are. They're also shitting their pants about France possibly getting involved. They're super, super pissy about what Macron said, so it's not going good for them. Basically, they're all just dying. They just keep sending these young Russian men in meat wave attacks. They are dying at massive, massive rates. There is no realistic prospect of them ever winning or gaining any territory. Best case scenario for the Russians is Ukraine just enters negotiations for a peace deal. That is the best case scenario for the Russians. Worst case is Ukraine, you know, ends up getting, you know, funding from the U.S. Assuming fucking Mike Johnson calls for a vote. Other possibility is, again, other NATO countries like France end up, you know, actually directly intervening in the war, and then they just have a complete and utter defeat, and they're pushed out of, like, even the Crimean Peninsula. So even the best case scenario for the Russians is terrible for them. It's still a loss fundamentally. But yeah, Russia is getting completely fucked.
Engage! Oh my god, he doesn't even engage with what I'm saying! Kill me!
That's not what history is about.
History is about Palestinian rejection of any peace deal.
As I
over
said,
and over and over
as I
again.
said, when the ball was thrown into the court of the United Nations, they were faced with a practical problem. And I, for one, am not going to try to adjudicate the rights and wrongs from the beginning. I do not believe that if territorial displacement and dispossession was inherent in the Zionist project, I do not believe it can be a legitimate political enterprise. Now, you might say that's speaking from 2022. Or
what do we again? It's like the 1 and 2. It's like the 1 and 2 quotes that he has, and that's it. His entire view of all of this is built on 1 or 2 quotes. All of it. An hour and 24 minutes in, and not a single new thing has been brought up by this side. Just a couple quotes.
2024 now. Okay, but we have to recognize that from nearly the beginning, for perfectly obvious reasons, having nothing to do with anti-Semitism, anti-Westernism, anti-Europeanism, but because no people that I am aware of would voluntarily cede its country. You can perfectly understand Native American resistance to Euro-colonialism. You can perfectly well understand it without any anti-Europeanism, anti-whiteism, anti-Christianism. They didn't want to cede their country to invaders. That's completely understandable.
You're minimizing the anti-Semitic element
you minimized
in Arab nationalism.
In all your books, you minimized.
No. Husseini was an anti-Semite. The leader of the Palestinian national movement in the 30s and 40s was an anti-Semite. This was one of the things which drove him, and also drove him in the end to work in Berlin for Hitler for 4 years, with giving Nazi propaganda to the Arab world, calling on the Arabs to murder the Jews. That's what he did in World War II. That's the leader of the Palestinian Arab national movement.
Why is it,
and he wasn't alone.
Why is it, if you read your book, Righteous Victims, you can read it and read it and read.
Why does he do this? It must be obvious to anybody that's not totally bought in on this side at how intellectually bankrupt this is, right? It must be obvious, right? It has to be.
You read your.
Like, why would the guy completely and utterly contradict his own literature? It just doesn't make any fucking sense. You're there with the guy who wrote the fucking book, and then you're like, then why in your book did you say this? Like, he's clearly full of shit.
Your book, Righteous Victims. You can read it and read it and read it.
What time is it in Canada right now? Where I am on the East Coast, it's 12:59 a.m.
And read it as I have. you will find barely a word about the Arabs being motivated by anti-Semitism.
It exists, though.
I didn't say it doesn't exist.
You agree that it exists?
Hey, I don't know a single non-Jew who doesn't harbor anti-Semitic sentiments.
What a cop-out! Oh my god! What a cop-out here!
What?
You acknowledge that a people who were led by a guy that talked to Hitler and would later go on to recruit for the f***ing Nazis, that guy was anti-Semitic, right? Listen, bro. Everybody's got a...
Which of 2 Oscar-nominated movies did you see and what did you think? Also, I need to order parts for a motorcycle. What site would you recommend?
Parts for a motorcycle. If you're in the US, Revzilla, I think they sell parts. Yeah, they do sell parts. Air cleaners, filters, blah blah blah, frame sliders, clutch. And if you're in Canada, I would say Fortnine. And if you're in Europe, I don't know if FC Moto sells parts. Let me see. Yeah, parts. FC Moto also ships to the US and Canada, so you might be able to get a better deal for some parts from FC Moto, but yeah, either Revzilla, Fortnine, or FC Moto. Usually, at least depending on the part, just going to a local dealer and having them order something for you a lot of the time is a better idea, depending on, what you need. I don't know if I saw any Oscar-nominated movies this year. I didn't really watch too many movies. I also didn't watch the Oscars, so I don't even know what films were even Oscar-nominated, so... Thanks for the donation, though, Velma. Aaron P. donated $2. Why are you streaming early? I was going to... Just a second.
Here's some breakfast content for you. Absolutely don't watch on stream.
Okay, I'll look at that in a second. Thanks for the donation, Aaron P. I was going to watch porn. I'm horny, so I touch my penis while watching you, or should I watch porn and come? Whatever floats your boat, dude. Thanks for the donation, Aaron. Nah, nigga, this nasty as hell. What the fuck? I have never seen an anus that prolapsed before. I was confused, thinking, like, are those very weird balls? Okay, I've learned a new thing about human anatomy. Thanks for the donation, Aaron P.
A little bit of anti-Semitism in him. Oh my god, what a f***ing quote to rip there.
You agree that it exists?
Hey, I don't know a single non-Jew who doesn't harbor anti-Semitic sentiments.
I should have said here, this conversation is making me anti-Semitic. So did this debate,
No. Yeah, but I don't know anybody. That's just part of the human condition.
Anti-Semitism.
Yes,
and among the Arabs.
So, Professor Mars, here's my problem. I didn't see that in your righteous victims. Even when you talked about the first intifada, and you talked about the second intifada, and you talked about how there was a lot of influence by Hamas, the Islamic movement, you even stated that there was a lot of anti-Semitism in those movements, but then you went on to say, but of course, at bottom, it was about the occupation. It wasn't about...
Yeah, dude, Finkelstein is fucking insane. So, like, after pointing out that the Arab leader at the time was literally friends with Hitler, trying to recruit for the Nazi party and encouraging Palestinians to murder Jews, he's like, everybody harbors anti-Semitism. Like, why in the fuck would you go that far to excuse literally Nazism?
And I've read it.
And Finkelstein thinks this legitimizes the pro-Palestinian movement. Like saying, oh, everybody believes in Nazism to some degree.
No, I'm not
ages, across the ages.
About your whole book.
The occupation began in 67, the one you're talking about.
I looked for evidence of this.
Would Hassan ever debate me? There's no way. No chance he would.
Anti-Semitism as being a chief motor.
He never said it was a chief motor. Did he say that? Did I miss that?
I didn't say it.
Did he make that claim?
I don't remember the word chief.
Yeah. He never even said that. What are you talking about?
Like a very binary thing.
Binary.
Yes, binary.
Please don't give me this postmodernism binary. You're the one that said the chief motor. Do you have your book here? Page 137.
You talk in black and white.
Page 37.
You're talking in black and white concepts when history is much grayer. Lots of things happen because of lots of reasons.
Please don't ever cock yourself for these people again, even for Lex. Frankly, these people, Candace, Norm, mainstream accepted critics, don't deserve it, and you're way funnier, such more persuasive when you're being aggressive. No, I think, as much as I get frustrated by these things, I have to externalize a lot of my analyses of these events, like externalize it from the moment. Like on my Candace thing, I really wanted to tear into her. On this thing, I really wanted to tear into Benny. Not Benny,
Big fan. Can't wait to see Dominate Kick or Keep again. Well, thanks, dude. Appreciate it.
Into Norm. But I think at the end, I think I'm doing these about as I'm supposed to. Keep in mind that like these do unlock our conversations, and we're getting to talk to and see more and more people. If I would just be unhinged, we would never even have this conversation in the first place. So I think my strategy is correct. I just have to stay the course and then slip in things that we can slip in when we can. It's also about buying credibility with certain areas too. Keep in mind that I think a lot of the success I've had in my career has been about buying credibility with certain communities. I say that like it's disingenuous, but it's not. It's about earning, I should say earning reputation in communities, right? That my Rittenhouse takes, my stance on guns, might have earned me more reputations with people on the right. Very initially, my ability to be hardcore and edgy and, you know, whatever, screaming at people online, you know, bought me credibility with online communities. And now I'm in a process of kind of like earning or buying credibility with a little bit more mainstream communities. That's kind of what the mainstream podcasts are, these types of debates are. And to buy that credibility, you have to show that you're exhibiting behavior that's not completely, totally fucking unhinged. Once you have
Okay, that is bullshit. You don't have to have a screaming match with somebody. I should talk to Destiny about that next time he's online. I don't know if he's on right now. But you don't have to scream and have shouting matches with people. Like, just forcing them to, you know, answer a question. Just say, okay, I'm going to ask you this again. You're avoiding the question. Like, you can be calm and cordial with somebody while forcing a point a little harder.
Have the credibility, then you have a wider arena to play in. But if I were to just like be completely unhinged, because I am like a huge outsider in this conversation, right? Compared to these three people, or at least to two of them, or at least to Benny Morris, I'm a big outsider here. So I think it's, even if it's frustrating, and it would be nice to just go full unhinged. Also, I have to respect Lex's reputation here as well, because keep in mind, I'm
like seeing streams in the morning.
Well, I might do them more often. I'm doing an early stream right now because I've been having issues with exhaustion, and I'm just trying to stay awake during the day. But thanks for the donation, not in Wib.
only here as an extension of Lex's reputation that he's willing to vouch for me. Otherwise, I'm never in a conversation with Norm and Wayne. So I think it's frustrating as it is. I think the approach is correct.
Not one or the other, and you don't seem to see that.
Can I ask you a question, because it's for them to talk to? Just a very quick question. What do you think the ideal solution was on the Arab side from 47? What would they have preferred? And what would happen if, and then the second one, what would happen? Example of you buying credibility with Islam? I don't know, maybe shitting on Christians? I don't really care about buying credibility with religious communities, though. Solution was on the Arab side from 47. What would they have preferred? And what would happen if, and then the second one, what would have happened if Jews would have lost the war in 48? What do you think would have happened to the Israeli population?
Well, I think the Palestinians and the Arabs were explicit that they wanted a unitary.
Alawali, donate $2. This is the best vegan thing I ever tasted. What is the vegan thing you tasted, or if you had only one meal for the rest of your life to eat, what would it be?
Yo, what's up? So today, I apologize for the glare if it's too much, but I got Publix Turkey Club, vegan style. Has vegan ranch, vegan cheese, vegan turkey. And we put some tomato and lettuce on it. So I'm gonna try it. I tried the Tex-Mex and I tried, I think it was, no, I don't know. I hear people say, "Yeah, I'm not gonna try a vegan anything," but goddamn, that's fucking.
I think either vegan sushi or like chickpea masala. That'd probably be my two go-to, you know, foods or meals or dishes that I could, you know, eat for the rest of my life. Thanks for the donation, though, Alawali.
I think federal state, and they made their submissions to UNSCOP. They made their appeals at the UN General Assembly.
What do you mean by unitary and federal? I don't get that. They wanted an Arab state. They wanted Palestine to be an Arab state.
Yes, yes.
But that word, unitary, federal, they wanted Palestine as an Arab and exclusively Arab state.
No, it wasn't an exclusively Arab state. I think we have to distinguish between Palestinian and Arab opposition to a Jewish state in Palestine.
Benny's misspeaking a little here. Benny shouldn't have said exclusively an Arab state. What Benny meant was, and if you're using your brain at all, you know what he means. But these people are very, very snaky with the way that they speak. That's why they're saying, like, oh, they wanted a unitary federal. What Benny said, they wanted exclusively an Arab state. What Benny meant is they wanted an exclusively Arab ran state. There could have been other minorities that would existed inside the state, but they'd be dhimmi. They would be second-class citizens. That's what Benny meant. And I think everybody at this table should know that that's what Benny meant. But of course, we're like trying to thread the needle on. They wanted a unitary federalist system that would have had minorities living inside, blah, blah, but that's not really what it is.
Palestine on the one hand, and Palestinian and Arab attitudes to Jewish existence in Palestine. And there's a fundamental difference.
Husseini, the leader of the movement, said that all the Jews would come since 1917, and that's the majority of the Jews in Palestine in 1947 shouldn't be there.
Yes.
They shouldn't be citizens and they shouldn't be there.
He did say that.
I'm not going to deny it. It's true. I can understand the sentiment, but I think it's wrong.
But also, you guys are the ones. Okay, fine, sure. Maybe the Mufti, maybe the guy that was the leader of the Palestinians did want to expel every single Jewish person that had come since 1920 or 1917. Maybe, sure, okay, fine. But what about this Theodore Herzl quote? This guy that died, at the beginning of the 20th century. What about
the only path to tell is people actually listen to this retard. Oh yeah, I hate this guy.
It's 4:30 p.m. First meal of the day. 8 eggs, some wild salmon, some feta cheese, tomato sauce from prepared meals, and some almond butter.
Yeah, lots of cholesterol for you.
Now, I eat like this because I feel good. This is the kind of food that makes you feel good. Real food. Let's go.
Yeah, this guy is an actual tard. I eat my first meal between 4 and 5 p.m. You shouldn't actually do that. Late day fasting is clearly not ideal for health. You should be having your larger meals towards the beginning of the day and smaller meals towards the end of the day. So I don't know why this late day fasting thing has really taken off. And also what he's eating for the most part is just not good for you. Eggs are obviously fucking bad for you. Super loaded with fucking cholesterol. Salmon, obviously a better option when it comes to meat, but the recent Harvard prospective cohort that came out, it actually found a greater correlation between fish and type 2 diabetes than with red meat. And it's hypothesized that it may be due to the type of fish or the ways that Americans eat fish, but it may also be due to the pollutants that are found in fish, like forever chemicals, heavy metals, stuff like that. It also doesn't contain any fiber. It's lacking. It has no phytonutrients. Almond butter's fine, but yeah, the way this guy eats is just garbage. He also eats like low carb and shit, which also isn't ideal. But she is person. Let me see. Oh my god. She does look like a person. That's amazing. Wow. That's a nice little fox. My god. That's amazing. Wow, so fuzzy. Ooh.
声が大きい、声が大きい。ちょっと。ママ、耳がおかしくなっちゃうよ。うん。わしゃわしゃ。すんごい息が続くね。近い。うん。
That looks like a lot of fun. It's a nice crow. Oh my god. That's a raccoon dog. Oh my god, look at him. Wow. Now that's a special animal. So fuzzy. Wow, so chunky too. That's amazing. Any new vlogs coming? I'll probably start vlogging again. Probably by, next week. Or the end of this week. I'm on a deload right now, and it's cold, so yeah, the weather's gonna get a bit warmer, and I'm gonna start training again, late this week, so in about a week, I'm gonna start vlogging again. Thanks for the donation, The Only Path. Oh my goodness. That is a very pretty sheep. Wow. That's amazing.
This guy that died in 1907. What about this guy that, what about when Ben Gurion wrote that thing in his diary, though? Okay, right?
I want to answer your guys earlier, you used the word earlier that it was supremacy and exclusivity that designed.
Oh, I bring this up again. Thank God. I go up. I have a whole page of shit written down. Good job. You remember bringing this up. Nice. Okay. How do they respond to this?
You guys, I want to answer your guys earlier, you used the words earlier that it was supremacy and exclusivity that designed.
I want to answer your question.
No! He said those two things. Make him answer it, please. Do I bring this up again, please?
Husseini did say that, and I'm sure there was a very substantial body of Palestinian Arab public opinion that endorsed that. But by the same token, I think a unitary Arab state, as you call it, or a Palestinian state, could have been established with arrangements, with guarantees, to ensure the security and rights of both communities. How that would work in detail.
Bullshit. Yeah, right. The fucking... an Arab state that's led by a fucking Nazi who is encouraging Palestinian people to kill Jews is going to ensure the rights of fucking Jewish people. Right. Just look at current day Palestine and tell me if, human rights are respected there.
had been discussed and proposed, but never resolved. And again, I think Jewish fears about what would
have happened. Holocaust. That's what.
Well, no,
that was the Jewish fear. A second Holocaust.
That may well have been the Jewish fear. It was an unfounded Jewish.
Oh, so the Jewish fears were unfounded, but the Arab fears were incredibly real and true?
Dude, like, these people are insane. They're literally unhinged. Did you enjoy the season 3 finale of The Boys? Have I seen it? The season 3 finale was when they got Soldier Boy to fight Homelander, right? That's what happened? Yeah, I liked that ending. It was good.
It was unfounded?
Of course it was unfounded.
What about like in 48 and 56?
You really think that the Palestinians, had they won the war, were going to import ovens and crematoria from Germany?
But there were programs across in almost every single Arab state where there were Jews living after 48, after 56, after 67. There were always pogroms. There were always flights from Jews from those countries to Israel.
I wouldn't say there were always pogroms in every.
What do you mean? Well, I wouldn't say exactly that. Oh my God. Oh, it's so slimy. I think Benny corrects me here. Please, God, Benny, give more examples.
Arab state. I think there was flight of Arab Jews for multiple reasons. In some cases, for precisely the reasons you say. If you look at the Jewish community in Algeria, for example, their flight had virtually nothing to do with the Arab-Israeli conflict. The issue of Algerian Jews was that the French gave them citizenship during their colonial rule of Algeria, and they increasingly became identified with French rule. And when Algeria became independent, and all the French...
Thank you for this debate. Dude, I want to collect all the bad debate tricks that people use, and we should pick and choose like 3 debates per year. I'm going to employ every single bad debate tactic, right? Like, isn't it true yesterday that you ran over 3 people when you were driving to Miami? You ran over 3 people? Okay, hold on. Yesterday, when I drove to Miami Beach, or when I was driving from Miami to Miami, I was driving my Ford Focus RS, okay? It uses the same EcoBoost, I think 2.3 liter, whatever capacity as like the Mustang uses. It's the same type of engine. The gas mileage is not the best. I think it's like 20 miles per gallon. The all-wheel drive is pretty cool. Like this, like, will you just like ramble on some totally non-central, irrelevant point? Like, why the f are we getting like break down the detailed history of Algeria and French colonization? Why? What are we doing here? Like, it's such an obvious diversionary tactic to try to move the spotlight away from the central point.
Ended up leaving out of fear or out of disappointment or out of whatever. The Jews were identified as French rather than Algerian.
This is a bit of a red herring. There were pogroms in the Arab countries, in Bahrain even, where there's almost no Jews. There was a pogrom in 1947. There was a pogrom in Aleppo in 1947.
I'm not denying any of that.
Oh, and then he's like, well, hold on, I'm not denying. Okay, you know about that. Okay, I'm not denying it. You just did try to deny it. You were just saying, well, it was complicated, blah, 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 blah.
Killings of Jews in Iraq and Egypt in 1948-49.
I'm not denying it.
The Jews basically fled the Arab states not for multiple reasons. They fled because they felt that the governments there and the societies amid which they had lived for hundreds of years.
Do I ever bring up this debate? Okay, then do we talk about the push-pull factors of the Nakba, or do we exclusively talk about that as a push factor?
Congo wanted them.
Look, without getting into the details, I think we can.
I also hate that. We're in a 6-hour debate. What do you mean without getting into the details? What the f are we here for if not to get into the details? Why would we have a 6-hour convo where we don't get into the details? What do you mean?
Both agree that ultimately a clear majority of Arab Jews who believe that after having lived in these countries for centuries, if not millennia, came
the repeating of the same thing, the Haas tactic,
to the unfortunate conclusion that their situation had become untenable. Yes. I also think that we can both agree that this had never been an issue prior to Zionism and the emergence of the State of Israel. Look, I'm not.
The problems didn't begin with Zionism in the Arab world.
The issue is the point I raised, which is whether these communities had ever come to a collective conclusion that their position had become untenable in this part of the world. No, they were Arab Jews.
Well, because untenable meant there was no alternative. But with the creation of Israel, there was an alternative, right? A place where they could go and not be discriminated against or live as second-class citizens or be subject to Arab majority states. I also think it's interesting that, like, when you analyze the flight of Jewish people.
Oh yes, I'm gonna say it. We talk about push-pull factors. Do we say push-pull with the Nakba? Please tell me that's where I'm going.
And I've seen this, that it wasn't just, I agree with you, it wasn't just a mass expulsion from all the Arab states. There were definitely push factors. There were also pull factors. Now, I don't know how you guys feel about the Nakba, but when the analysis of the Nakba comes in, again, it's back to that, well, that was actually just a top-down expulsion. The retreat of wealthy Arab people in the 30s didn't matter. Any of the messaging from the surrounding Arab states didn't matter. It was just an expulsion from Jewish people or people running from their lives from Jewish massacres. Again, it's like, I feel like it's a selective critical analysis of
the term Jewish here because
oh my God. And then he goes to I don't know what to say. What do you, because I try to qualify this, because pre-48, it doesn't make sense to call them Israelis because there's no country yet. Pre-48, you can call them Zionists, I guess, but that feels kind of loaded. And then same thing with like the Arabs or the Palestinians or Palestinian Arabs and surrounding Arab states or, oh God, and now he fixates on this word Jewish. When it's obvious, like I'm not playing into like, I never bring up anti-Semitism. I have no interest in even going down that hole, although I know why people like to, and I understand where it comes from now, Jesus Christ.
Again, it's like I feel like it's a selective critical analysis of
the term Jewish here because it wasn't the the Jews of England or the Soviet Jews.
I say Jewish because prior to 48,
I think it's useful to say refer to.
Oh shit! He woke up. Did he just wake up? Did he just find a quote in his own book?
I think it's useful to say refer to Zionists before 1948 and Israelis after 48. We don't need to implicate.
Well, sure, but the Jewish people that were being attacked in Arab states weren't Zionists. They were just Jews living there.
Yep. Oh, that is true. Good point. That's why I said Jewish. He's so smart. That is true. That is correct. That when Jews were attacked in surrounding Arab states in response to the 48 catastrophe, the Nakba, and the loss of the surrounding Arab states, they were being attacked because they were Jews, not because they were Zionists, because they were Jews. That is true. Good point. Strong point. Yes.
And on that, I was rereading Shlomo Ben Ami's last book, and he does, at the end, discuss at some length the whole issue of the refugee question bearing on the so-called peace process. And on the question of 48 and the Arab emigration, if you allow me, let me just quote him. Israel is particularly fond of the awkwardly false symmetry she makes between the Palestinian refugee crisis and the forced emigration of 600,000 Jews from Arab countries.
One of the most frustrating things, now that I've talked to Ben Ami, I need to email him a good list of questions. Because he wants to come on stream and chat. One of the most frustrating things about Ben Ami is he tries so hard to give both sides of like, this is where the Jews f***ed up, this is where the Arabs f***ed up, and this is what people need to do. And this is when he gives some people credit. This is where Golda Meir was a horrible leader. This is where Sadat was an amazing Arab leader. This is where Begin and Rabin, turned on their extremist past, were amazing leaders. This is where Arafat f***ed up, right? He's really good at giving credit to sides when they deserve credit and giving condemnation to sides when they deserve condemnation. It is a crime. It is a crime when terrorists like Finkelstein selectively quote a person like this. I cannot think of something that would be more frustrating than having some loser like this selectively quote you when you try to give a balanced telling of both sides of history.
Following the creation of the State of Israel.
Rabbani is only palatable in contrast to Finkelstein. Rabbani, I don't like. His character is okay. As a person, he was respectful. His positions are unhinged. But you don't see that yet, but we'll get there, okay? God damn.
As if it were, quote, an unplanned exchange of populations, unquote. And then Mr. Ben Ami, for those of you who are listening, he was Israel's former foreign minister, and he's an influential historian in his own right. He says, in fact, envoys from the Mossad and the Jewish Agency worked underground in Arab countries and Iran to encourage Jews to go to Israel. More importantly, for many Jews in Arab states, the very possibility of emigrating to Israel was the culmination of millennial aspirations. It represented the consummation of
I like how Norm is catching up to the conversation. Yes, correct. You are giving examples of push-pull factors. Like, why the f*** are you reading this right now? What is...
to take part in Israel's resurgence as a nation. So, this idea that they were all expelled after 1948, that's one area, Professor Moritz, I defer to expertise. That's one of my credos in life. I don't know the Israeli literature, but as it's been translated in English, there is very little solid scholarship on what happened in 1948 in the Arab countries and which caused the Jews to leave.
Arab Jews.
Arab Jews, right. But Shlomo Ben Ami knows the literature. He knows the scholarship.
He
He's
also
a
comes from
historian.
Tangiers.
Yeah,
from Morocco.
Right. So he
Avi
knows this.
Schleim from Iraq has written on this issue.
And they
as
wrote
well.
that the Jews in the Arab lands were not pro-Zionist. They weren't Zionists at all. So certainly Avi Schleim's family was anti-Zionist.
And Avi Schleim, when he was interviewed by Meron Rappaport on this question, he said, you simply cannot say that the Iraqi Jews were expelled. It's just not true. And he was speaking as an Iraqi Jew who left with his father and family in 1948.
They were pushed out.
Wow, I just get up this morning. Why are you so early today, VG? Also happy Sunny Parix Day.
It's, is it St. Patrick's Day? Huh. Apparently it is St. Patrick's Day. Well, I didn't know that. Good morning, Dodo. Thanks for the donation, dude.
Well,
did you say you're going to talk to Shlomo Ben Ami? Yeah, I don't know why. Apparently every single Jew knows every other Jew. So a bunch of people email me who know politicians or people in Israel. And I had an intro call with Ben Ami a week ago when I was flying to Omaha. We chatted for about 30 minutes. And then I just need to email him a list of questions so that he knows in advance what we're going to talk about when he comes on stream. Or I told him I would so that he'd be ready to talk about stuff. Yeah. I want to talk to Motorbox about what those questions should be. Yeah.
Jew who left with his father and family in 1948.
They were pushed out. They weren't expelled.
Well,
that's probably the right phrase.
I think it's more complex than that. I think it was. Sorry, I interrupted
No,
you.
you're not interrupting me because I only know what's been translated into English, and the English literature on the subject is very small and not scholarly. Now there may be a Hebrew literature, I don't know, but I was surprised that even Shlomo Ben Ami, a stalwart of his state, fair enough.
Out your hair and beard, please. Go Super Saiyan God mode.
Don't want to grow out my hair too much because, yeah, I can't do that because then my motorcycle helmets wouldn't fit. I used to have an afro almost this big. Almost. It was probably like out to here. But I used to have a pretty big afro. Thanks for the donation, Black Lotus.
On this particular point, he called it false symmetry.
No, Stephen is right. There was a pull and push mechanism in the departure of the Jews from the Arab lands post-48. But there was also a lot of push.
Wait, real quick. Did I use that card correctly? I used to think for a flush, but I feel like it never actually does anything for me. I can't tell if it's actually bonusing me or not.
That's indisputable. There was,
and on the point of agreement, on this one brief light of agreement, let us wrap up with this topic of history and move on to modern day. But before that, I'm wondering if we could just say a couple of last words on this topic. Steven?
Yeah, I think that when you look at the behaviors of both parties in the time period around 48, or especially 48 and earlier, there's this assumption that there was this huge built-in mechanism of Zionism and that it was going to be inevitable from the inception of the first Zionist thought, I guess that appeared in Herzl's mind, that there would be a mass violent population transfer of Arab Palestinians out of what would become the Israeli state. I understand that there are some quotes that we can find that maybe seem to possibly support an idea that looks close to that, but I think when you actually consult the record of what happened, when you look at the populations, the massive populations that Israel was willing to accept within what would become their state borders, their nation borders, I just don't think that the historical record agrees with the idea that Zionists would have just never been okay living alongside Arab Palestinians. But when you look at the other side, Arabs would out of hand reject literally any deal that apportioned any amount of that land for any state relating to Jewish people or the Israeli people, and they would say even on the
Fuck, just realized